You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Thursday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your man at Disney, Isaiah Hall, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. We are going to continue LISTAPALOOZA as I am continuing to vacation. This is how I do it, and I've kind of done it the last couple of years. Last year, I kind of did like three little... I try to get out of Dodge in the winter. I get seasonal affection disorder, whatever you call it. And so I've been starting to... I didn't do this before, but I'm starting to try to get out of Dodge. I'm going to probably try to get out of Dodge one more time this year. I keep on trying to say, Sarah, let's go somewhere. Sarah, let's go somewhere. And we're trying to figure that out. But last year, for instance, like I go after the bowl game. I went to Disney World for 3 days. I was sick during all of them, and then flew home, came back for a couple weeks. And then I had a friend that was like, hey, my friend Brittany was like, hey, do you want to come to Disney for like a day, literally? With me and my friend Chelsea, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I flew down to Disney, did it for a day and a half, and then came home and was here for like 3 weeks. And then this time last year, Sarah and I flew down to Florida. Again, I was 3 times in Florida, but we went to my grandparents' house, and I went and saw my grandpa, who was in the process of passing away. Didn't really say goodbye because it was more praying that he would be okay and all of that. But nonetheless, got to see him one last time. So I tend to do a couple little mini trips. I don't go for like a whole week somewhere. Like I did 3 days of Disneyland coming out of this last, after the bowl game, because I was preparing for if Michigan was going to go to the national championship game. Went out to Southern California. They didn't do it. I did 3 days of Disney. I was just going to do 2. I ended up doing 3. And now I'm doing, kind of 2 days at Disney. So the agenda today, for those who care and for those who don't care, I'm telling you anyway, Tron. But Isaiah, that doesn't open until April 4th. That you're correct, it does not. But I'm going to ride it, as long as my plane didn't divert me to Shreveport. Thanks to good friend Luke DeMello. So excited about that. Anyway, that is the agenda. I fly home later tonight, and we'll be back and we'll do the mailbag either Friday or Saturday, all depending on if there's news that breaks in the meantime that we absolutely have to talk about. So anyway, let's get into our list. Enough vamping and killing time. That's what I'm doing here. The 10 most overlooked players to continue our Listapalooza. We'll do like we did on the Wednesday episode. 3-4-3. Number 10, wide receiver Roman Wilson. Roman is just a guy, like I feel like maybe this is more from a national perspective, but even Michigan people, I think we all have high hopes for what he can do. And this last year, I mean, obviously the injury didn't help, but he finished 25 catches, 376. That was 15.04 yards per catch, 4 touchdowns. I'd like to see that be more like... Hold on, I'm going to tell you what I want it to be more like. We're going to get real cute with this one. We're going to get real cute. I said Jerry Jeudy before. I meant Devontae Smith in a previous episode. He had 117 catches for 1,856 yards and 23 touchdowns. I want Roman Wilson to do that. Can he? Will he? Probably not. I think he can be a 1,000-yard receiver, though. I think he could be. I think that if you gave him the opportunity, he could be like he's a Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy type guy. I think he's even faster than they are. I'm just looking at Judy's capability, and he was really good. I think that Roman Wilson, and this is partially just potential, I think he could be like a 50 catch, 800, 900, 1,000-yard type guy. And I think that he's overlooked nationally for that capability because he hasn't produced. But early in the season, we saw him just going nuts. But the problem is, as I mentioned in an earlier episode this week, week 5 has downed him twice in the last 2 years. His hand against Wisconsin and his head against Iowa. So Michigan is going to Nebraska in week 5. Maybe you just keep him home. Don't let him get on the plane. Even if he's like leading, and even if like go through 4 weeks, it's like Roman Wilson probably is going to get the Heisman. I think it's like, hey, dude, this is your bye week. Just chill out. Get through week 5. Put yourself in some bubble wrap. So that's I think Roman Wilson could be really, really good. And I think we've seen glimpses of it. And I think now is his time to shine. And we'll see how that goes. Number 9 and number 8 are both, I'm mirroring Wednesday's breakout players, except for they were 6 and 7 in the breakout players. Now I have them as overlooked players. That's Derek Moore at 9 and Braden McGregor at 8. And kind of explain why just based off of their late production. Derek Moore's overlooked, but I think it's not that he's overlooked. It's just more that he's growing into his role. You know, this was his first year. It takes a little bit of acclimation. Braden McGregor, this was his 3rd year. Took him a little bit of acclimation. Do that before I cough here. So I think that it's going to be a situation where both of those guys rise. Now, I think the question is how does Josiah Stewart impact that? Or some other guys that we haven't talked about, TJ Guy. Certainly there's other guys that I'm just forgetting. Keyshawn Bennett. You know, ones that could really step up and come out of nowhere. But those are the 2 that I have my eye on. And I think from an edge rushing perspective, I expect them both to be pretty good. I mean, they both did. I think when you look at the stats, they didn't do too shabby. Let's go to them again because I'm not going to make you go and reference another episode. That's ridiculous. But Braden McGregor had 2 sacks, as did Derek Moore. They each had 2 sacks. Tackles for loss, Braden McGregor had 4.5. Derek Moore had 2. Braden McGregor, I believe, was 7th in tackles on the team. And I'd tell you if my internet would work. There we go. No, I was wrong. I was very wrong. 16th with 16. That's right. I don't remember what I was. I think it was 7th on sacks is where I was. Yeah, 7th in sacks. So anyway, I think that duo is going to end up being really good. And we saw Braden McGregor kind of start to round into form. I think he takes a big step forward. Same with Derek Moore, and that's more of just a traditional development arc. But anyway, all right, that's going to do it for segment 1. I was going to say episode 1, and I had no idea what I was talking about. We'll continue on with the next 4 here in a moment. Before we do that, this year the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, and that's coming up in a couple days, man. America's #1 sportsbook. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, and that's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't hit. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's continue on. The most overlooked players. No, we're going to go 7 through 4 here. Number 7 is Jaden McBurrows, and I understand why, because he hasn't done anything. But all of the talk from like Steve Klinkscale 2 years ago when he was a freshman before his injury and was just like, you know, how good he was. He was a guy that they were trying to get out there. They were talking about him as a starter really quickly and then was injured all year this year. I think he would have certainly been in the rotation and seen a lot of playing time. But now It's like I feel like no one's talking about him as being having that opportunity to start opposite Will Johnson. Maybe people are, and maybe my nose isn't to the. I don't know where that idiom's going, but maybe it's maybe I'm just not as clued into what people are talking about. But just as I sat here and wrote it, I was just like, I just don't feel like people are talking about him as having that opportunity. And I think he's going to win that job, and even unless they bring in like an insanely good transfer, even if they bring in, let's say the hypothetical that people are talking about on message boards, that Damani Jackson transfers from USC to Michigan, I still think that Jade McBurrow starts, and maybe he's like the third guy, I think that he's going to be really good, and I just think that people aren't really talking about him. Then sometimes it's as simple as that to make my list. Number 6. And he is one of a couple people who on this list who have started, who is a starter, has been a starter. I shouldn't say has been a starter. And that's Trente Jones. Because he had a little bit of a rough start to 2022, first time starting. Then puts together 2 or 1.5 really good games and gets injured. And then, we see him sparingly after that because Carson Barnhart kind of steals away the position and usurps him. You have to keep in mind, PFF had him as the number 35 run blocker in the Big Ten. Pretty good. Just among all positions that block, I think is how I did that, not just with linemen. All positions, so that includes tight ends and running backs and all of that stuff. But the number 35 run blocker. So upper echelon-ish, and he was doing really good, and he is a starter type. And I think that now, he'll return healthy. He has a little bit better idea of what's expected of him now that he's got a year of starting under his belt, or at least part of a year of starting under his belt. Knows what's expected. And he might, in platoon, he might win that starting job back. Who knows? Lots of competition in that offensive line room. He's not my only offensive lineman. It's Raheem Anderson's the other one. Because for him, and he's number 5, by the way. For Raheem, it's a little bit more of, I think there's probably a lot of people that aren't overlooking him, that look at him and say, yeah, he's probably going to be the center regardless of what Drake Nugent does. So this might just be me overlooking Raheem. Because to me, I look at that and I'm like, Drake Nugent's going to be the starting center for Michigan in 2023. But Raheem was really good even in the spot duty last year. In pass blocking, he ended up being Pro Football Focus's 22nd best pass blocker. Now, granted, he's not going up against necessarily the best of the best when he's been in there, because a lot of times when he was really out there, it was, against when Michigan had games wrapped up and such. But he could play backup guard. He could play center. They could do a lot with him. I will add Reese Atterbury as kind of tied with him because he was considered the center of the future. They moved him to guard. And unfortunately, he's just always playing behind someone that's just elite. So I'll add Reese Atterbury to that. Here's Zuri sighing over there. That poor puppy. Thinking about all her problems. Is that right, Zuri? Yeah, she's not paying attention to me. That's since it's Thursday, that's for you, Jimmy Whitner. Number 4 is Makari Page, another starter. And the reason why I put him here is just because, he was just solid. He was really good this past year. I want to see if I can pull this up quickly. Probably not, because it signs me out of PFF after my computer was shut down. Let's see if I can do this real fast. Makari Page was just kind of surprisingly good. And I think we all know that, right? I'm going to look at coverage grades. We'll go Big Ten. I didn't write any of this part in my write-up clearly. Otherwise, maybe I would have had this. But I think I wrote with my feelings earlier. So in the Big Ten, coverage grade, Makari Page was number 5 this past year. out of all safeties. He was behind Sidney Brown, Chase Brown's brother, really good. Kavion Merriweather, Iowa, really good. Ronnie Hickman, Ohio State, generally really good, maybe not against Michigan. John Torchio, Wisconsin, really good. Makari Page, there he is. He's actually one ahead of Rod Moore. Let's see. I think that's probably the only place I'm really going to get any real good intel is in the coverage scheme. But I just think that he's undervalued. Like when people were talking about Rod Moore as being like, man, this dude is just going to be insane. You know, I am too, right? Like I had him as my 14th most important player. He was a big reason why I had safety number 3 in my on my Monday list of ranking position groups. I think highly of him. I just think that Makari Page does not get talked about enough as being a guy that's just actually like turned into the guy that everyone thought he was going to be. So that's why I have him at number 4. So that is the 4 for this segment. Top 3 coming up. Top 10 most overlooked players. Spring edition. Listapalooza. Back in a second. Second is up. We are back. We have 3 more to crown. We're really going to have to vamp to get through these 3. We will see how that goes. My number 3 is a guy who started really making plays late in the season. He played kind of sparingly, but he was in very key moments, including the Ohio State game, and asserted himself, acquitted himself, did a very good job. And when it comes to the defensive tackle position, we're often talking about, I mean, obviously Chris Jenkins, but what's Mason Graham going to do? Kenneth Grant, what is he capable of doing? Now that he's going to get more time. And then you start looking at like, are you going to bulk up Derek Moore or Eno Etta or some of those other guys? I feel like we forget about Rayshawn Benny. So I put him at number 3. Didn't play nearly as much as Mason Graham. Entering his 3rd year now, but had some really good snaps. So I'm curious to see how he does. So staying in the Big Ten pass rush, this is going to be a adventure for me because I might not be able to. So yeah, he rated out pretty well. Not using any minimum snaps. So some guys might be in there like Gage Keys got 43 snaps. And he's 7th. Mason Graham was Michigan's top pass rush into a guy in the defensive interior. This is pass rush, defensive interior. Rayshawn Benny's number 14. Pretty good. Yeah, he's behind a couple Ohio State guys, Michael Hall and Tyleik Williams, that were both pretty good. But he's ahead of some others. He's ahead of Chris Jenkins. And Chris Jenkins, seems like we're always looking at pictures of him like celebrating having a successful pass rush. Run defense, let's check out the same thing. I clearly didn't do enough homework when I wrote my article. It takes some time to go and do some of these things. So run defense is not going to be quite as good, right? But he's 22nd on that list. He's certainly not the top Michigan guy. There's like 4 or 5 guys ahead of him in Michigan's run defense, defensive interior. Chris Jenkins, number 1. Mazi Smith, number 2. Mason Graham, number 3. Kenneth Grant, number 4. Rayshawn, number 5 at 22. Then you start really kind of getting down the list. But again, he's in the same conversation with like Michael Hall. He's in the same conversation with Logan Lee from Iowa, Teron Vincent from Ohio State. In that same conversation. Way less snaps, but really started putting on. And I think with an increased role this year, which I would expect him to get, I think he could really take a big step forward. Number 2 is a walk-on, maybe former walk-on. I always lose track of who's a walk-on and former walk-on. This one I did a little bit more research on. Tight end Max Bredesen. He's going to have his opportunity after the 4 guys left. Because again, Eric All, Luke Schoonmaker, Joel Honigford, Louis Hansen. Louis Hansen didn't play at all, but still, 4 guys gone. Max Bredesen saw quite a bit of time out there. Here's the surprising thing. Max Bredesen in the conference, the Big Ten conference, top pass blocking tight end. Not great in the run blocking, was down near the bottom, which is when he was in there quite a bit. But pass blocking, he was in there a lot. Let's see. Let's pull that up. The pass blocking, let's look at it, make sure that I have I think he was number 4 amongst all positions that block. Tackle, guard, center, tight end, running back. It's going to take a second for it to pull up. And I'll tell you how many snaps and everything he got, but he was at the top at tight end, for sure, when I was looking at it. But run blocking, again, not great. Needs some work. Max Bredesen comes from an athletic family, and a Michigan family that comes from Wisconsin. His brother Jack played the baseball team. His brother Ben was a team captain from the football team. So, amongst all positions in the Big Ten, Max Bredesen, granted, not a lot of snaps. He's in for 62 snaps, passing snaps. Number 3. So, if I'm reading this right, which still pretty good. Not nearly as much as the guys that were ahead of him. I just think that he's going to get a much bigger opportunity this year. They clearly loved him enough that he was primarily focused in the spring game, got a touchdown, and then got a lot more opportunities beyond that. I'm going to look up a couple more things here. So let's see. I don't need the pass blocking report here. Let's just go offense. Really good pass blocking against Ohio State, by the way, it said. 87.2. That's really the only game they graded him for, actually. That's why it was so high. Had some middling moments, even in that Ohio State game. Didn't get a great grade in the run blocking in that game. That's why he actually finished with a 63.4 rating. Most of the other games were a lot better. But really good in the non-conference. Pretty good against Maryland. Really good against TCU, actually, with the run blocking as well as offense in general, as well as in the Purdue game. So he's going to get a lot more opportunities than he had this last time. He had 233 total reps, according to PFF. That's probably going to double. He's probably going to be on the field a lot more. Maybe not double, that's a lot. But he'll probably be out there like 350, 400, something like that. As long as my math is right. He's going to see a lot more time. So I think people are overlooking him, and I think that happens when you're a walk-on in general. That starts to see more time. But I think that, again, A.J. Barter might be my choice as far as a guy that's going to really step up opposite Colston Loveland. Don't be surprised if Max Bredesen ends up being that guy. He's already been around. He's been around for a couple of years. Biding his time, worked his way up as a walk-on. It'll be interesting to see what he does. My number 1 guy was supposed to be my top breakout player last year. Didn't happen. So now he's my most overlooked player. And that doesn't just go by fans. That goes by the coaching staff. It's A.J. Henning, wide receiver. If you go back through the all of these lists that we have done, in the last last couple days, I don't believe I mentioned A.J. Henning's name. Maybe once I did. But what does that say? He's a senior wide receiver. That was a focal point of the offense in 2021, but disappeared in 2022. The snap counts prove it. I don't have them in front of me. I'm not going to look them up because I don't think it's as important as me telling you what the difference in production was. In 2021, receiving-wise, A.J. Henning had 10 catches for 79 yards. That's not a lot. Rushing-wise, A.J. Henning had 9 carries for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. You knew he was getting the ball. You knew he was going to be doing the jet sweep. There was going to be a bunch of stuff. This year, running the ball, he appeared in 13 games, 3 carries, 3 rushes, 9 yards. 3. for 9. Let's refresh. The year before, 9 for 162. This year, 3 for 9. So it wasn't good as far as that's concerned. Receiving wise, he had 9 catches for 60 yards. So receiving wise, not much different. He was a 19-yard catch away from tying that. But we've seen he has this game-breaking ability when he's out in open space with the kick and the punt returns, right? We've seen that. Kick returns, 11 for 241 this year. Punt returns, 28 for 201 with a touchdown. Last year was 29 for 274 on punt, and kick was 6 for 98 with a touchdown. So I think he's got that ability. He's got that capability. It's just about putting him in that position where he's could do it. And I think that a lot of other teams would probably utilize AJ Henning in such a way that he would break out. It just seemed like they forgot about him for 2/3 of the year, except for on special teams. So anyway, that's going to do it. This podcast and apparently my Disney adventure. I'll be back with you on Friday. I will be very sad about it because I love Florida. I love hot weather. And I love Disney. But nonetheless, the Listapalooza has come to an end. There will either be the mailbag. Watch out for the call on Twitter. I'll either put it out on I'll probably put it out on Thursday at some point. Or it'll be us talking about some pressing news we didn't get to all week. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back. Peace.